All right, let's be honest. You've been going so slow, you plateaued. If you do grow, like you barely fucking grow. You think you got all the time in the world to pull off a substantial amount of revenue. When we on this channel talk about $1 million months, whether it's the first million a month or the next million a month, like you have the aspiration to do one or the other, yet you move with the speed of a fucking turtle on your path of supposedly trying to get there. I get people that join into my stuff where we give them so much more than what we'd ever give you on YouTube. And we see some people come in without exaggeration, lightning speed. Those people get it. They take the information, they do something with it immediately. They don't make all the excuses that a majority of rich people make, okay? Yeah, getting rich is all about having a fucking awesome life, okay? Getting to do what we want, when we want to do it, getting to go out there and you know, just anything you want to do. Like you get the opportunity to do it. And ideally, you want to start families, have kids, you know, get yourself like a serious fucking crib, a set of cribs. You know, you want to get to the point where you can travel without even having to think twice about any fucking cost. You obviously just want to have money to instantly materialize whatever it is that you want to do in a given moment, right? No matter what your aspirations are, whether they're selfish, whether they're empathetical, you've got to understand there's a finite window. It's your earning window, okay? Where you have this illusion that it's far grander than it actually likely is, okay? I've seen guys where they crank $1 million a month. They scale up big time and they act like it's just gonna be there forever, and all of a sudden it's not. And then all of a sudden they have to go through the entire process all over again. And they don't, like they just lose the ambition, they lose the drive because they know how fucking exhausting it truly is to get that momentum in the first place. To create longevity, it costs a lot of money. Like, let's keep it real. Like, you've bought stuff before, like a nice car, right? Or maybe you've gotten a nice crib or like something, okay? And you realized after you got it that it's not just about the cost of getting it, there's also a cost of owning it and being able to keep it, okay? And it's the same thing with business. It's like you buy your way through time, literally spending money and a whole bunch of effort to get to the point where you finally have the fucking cash flow and the business and the value in this business that you've always dreamed of having. It's kicking out money left and fucking right. And you're loving it, right? You're loving it. And you start to think like, again, this is just gonna last forever. And failing to invest back into it so it actually lasts forever, or at least extending the life of it, is a major problem that you have. And what you instead do is you sit around and do fuck all most days. Like you fall into these routines of non-revenue driven actions. You make all kinds of stupid fucking excuses about why stuff has to take longer than it actually has to take. You've devolved to a point where you can't just inherently bias towards an aggressive level of action like you used to get to this point in the first place. You didn't fucking coast to get to here, but now that you've got here to try to get to there, you think you can coast? What kind of fucking illusion are you living in? You know how much work it takes just to get to this point that you've likely taken this thing to, and how much more work it's probable to take to get it to where you want it to go next and then maintain it being there? Your earning potential is generally finite when you behave like that. It's never probable to be infinite, but I'll tell you what, you can dramatically improve that revenue's lifespan if you stop fucking around all day and cut out all these justifications that you genuinely believe. That's always the craziest part. You actually believe the bullshit you say that inhibits the action that's required at the level that it likely takes. Okay, you think that shit's sweet at $1 million a month or a couple million bucks a month. It's a fuckload more work to do when you finally reach those levels and try to go beyond it. You're not just gonna get there and all of a sudden be able to sit around. It's not how it works. You're gonna cross this like finish line that you've set for yourself and then realize you gotta keep fucking running, right? You gotta keep running, otherwise it starts to contract and go back down. But the cooler part about having a fuckload more money is this: you get to materialize life faster. When you need top tier help, you can do it. When you need the literal best of the best to help give you perspective, you can pay for that perspective. You can afford it, right? When you officially realize, like, I've got to take jets for the time savings of the jet to get a few hours back so I can use that extra few hours to either strategically relax and or work because you got a fuckload of stuff you got to do. What most people have is this fucking fairy tale in their head. It's like you hit $1 million and you just get to fuck off and do nothing, right? You hit $1 million a month and like you just get to sit around. Not even remotely close to how it works. Okay, there's more work to do. There's more fulfillment, right? The whole point of getting to the point where you make a fuckload of money month in and month out, cash flow coming in, is that all the stuff that you wanted to get out of the way. Like, I'll give you a great one. I want to buy an $8 million house. You know how easy it is to accumulate $2.4 million in a shorter duration of time when you're cranking $1 million months? It's far easier. My original plan, I was thinking to myself, I was like, maybe I save $100,000 a month for like 24 months. It only take 2 years to save the 2.4 mil. Man, I committed to the goal. I got like $700,000 into the goal within about 2 months. I was like, this is fucking awesome. This is gonna go way faster than I thought it was, right? It's like you'll accumulate that kind of stuff. You'll get the little bullshit that you want, like watches and boats, and like your kids will go to schools that you've never even fucking heard of right now. But when you have kids ready to go to school, you'll be able to afford the best ones and you'll probably get them in there. Your network expands like fucking crazy, like wildfire. You'll have some of the most valuable people that you've ever thought you'll know in your contacts list regularly hitting you up to meet up. You know why? Because they want to share value. They want to give you stuff, you want to give them stuff. And honestly, a lot of the time you'll probably still have to say no because there's a fuckload more work to do to get to where you want to go next, right? There's all kinds of stuff that you can use as excuses, okay? I'll give you a great one. Just last night, you had an inner circle member who was like, man, I did all this work. I got to a high couple $100,000 a month. I really milked the shit out of this specific set of messaging and this specific audience type. And I'm kind of starting to see like a diminishing return from that audience. And I said, okay, like you think that the audience is infinite? There's a finite amount of people inside of each given audience, like a little oil in the ground, right? There's pockets of oil that are massive. There's tiny little pockets of oil that don't even make sense to drill into. And I did a video on this on my channel in relation to messaging where I had said, you got to learn to be like an oil well operator, where you find an oil field, you take the money that it costs, you take the people that need to be hired, and you drill that fucking well straight into the ground. And you obviously hope that whatever you've drilled into is a massive fucking pocket that can sustain for a very long duration of time. But what generally happens is it's not that fucking big. And you can only extract a certain amount of gallons of that oil per day. You can only take so much out, and then over a period of time, it's gonna run out anyway. And when it runs out, you gotta know when it runs out. And you gotta be able to strategically deploy the money, time, energy, and team again to go and find another oil patch, drill that new fucking well, and extract that new little pocket of oil out of it. This guy had the illusion that it's like some one and done thing, that you can just simply set some shit up like, yeah, you're gonna set up funnels. Yeah, you're gonna make new ads. You're gonna make new ads the rest of your fucking life running this business you've got, okay? Yeah, you're constantly gonna be sitting down and tweaking shit with your funnels, tweaking shit with your sales team. It's an illusion to think that you reach a point where there's no longer problems to solve. Okay? There's the problems that need solved to just get the cash flowing, right? To get the oil out of the ground, we got to set up the fucking well, have the money to do it, drill into the fucking ground, have the people who can do that, because you're probably not going to go out there and drill the fucking well yourself. And then obviously you got to have enough money, buy the land in the first place. Then you're finally extracting some oil and making money. And when you get to the point where your ads are shot, where you're filming for YouTube and all your organic channels to support your sales process via paid ads and drive some discovery organically too. Whether you have anything that goes wrong in your funnel or everything that goes wrong in your funnel, inevitably you'll have to do something on the funnel again. You'll have to film a new VSO. You'll have to go out there and run a webinar, run a 3-day virtual event, a challenge funnel. You'll have to do low ticket to high ticket product. You'll have to do call funnels. You'll have to do DM ads. Like, you'll have to get good at all kinds of shit. And guess what? Once you get good at those things, you'll probably have to get back and do them again and make them even better, or adapt them to the new audience that's required for you to sell into next. It's an illusion to think that you reach a point where there's no longer problems, okay? Once you get to the point where you finally have recognized, I've got a consistent amount of shit that I've got to accomplish on a day-to-day basis no matter what. I've got to hire more people that can go out on my organization's behalf and accomplish more shit no matter what, right? We got to keep the perpetual money machine in motion, okay? It does not sustain itself on its own. It takes time, effort, and attention. And when you reach a point where you've hit this fucking plateau, right? It can come from a handful of things. You might just not know what to do, right? But seeking what to do is not that hard. It just takes time and effort to educate yourself and then turn it into action. And the speed in which you move through that process to get back into action is the speed in which you're probable to start growing again, because you're starting to try new shit. Sometimes you reach a plateau because you got money. You finally got a little bit of money and you started to fuck off. You started to do everything but the thing that's actually making you the money. And no shit, it's stalled. You have a bunch of donkeys in your staff that barely maintain it, right? And that's why it coasts. That's why you experience little contractions here and there. And when you experience those contractions, like always, you stop fucking off, you step in and you get it back to the point where it was, and now it's plateaued again. Because guess what? You go fuck off again. You know, it's like, this is not the cycle that you want to live through. This is not how it's supposed to be, okay? This is not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a fuckload of money rolling in and day out. So you have an opportunity to condense things that take most people lifetimes into a couple months to be able to do, right? That's the whole point. Don't forget that. That's the whole fucking point. You are sacrificing the things that you sacrifice, that normal people go do, right? Like I remember the other day, this is probably, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see somebody through it's a staff member's team, right? Excuse me, it's a client's team staff member. So a client that we worked with, they had a team of people. This is one of their staff. Guy was a friend of mine on Facebook, and I see him on the wall of China, right? And I'm like, wow, that guy gets to go travel. Like, he barely makes any fucking money. And for a moment, I think to myself, I'm like, damn, like I haven't been to the wall of China. I just gotta work all the time because I got a fuckload of shit I gotta do. But then I remember the most important thing. That's something that he has to go and do, and then when he comes back, he has to kind of catch up. He has to get to the point where he recognizes, like, man, I get those little gleaming moments here and there. And then I always think of how those people's lives look as they get older and they're out of their earning window. They didn't accumulate enough, and as a result of that, they live like hyper turbo normies when they're old. Some of them more contracted than that. I lived in this area through COVID. It's called Ponce Inlet. It's a little beach town. We had a beach house for $8K and then $8,500 a month. You walk out in the backyard, a couple feet, you're at the beach, okay? And in this area, this is like the average median income. This is a little area in Florida on the East Coast called Daytona Beach. It's a little south than that for Ponce Inlet. And the average median income in Daytona Beach is about $42K a year, okay? There wasn't a single fucking good restaurant in that entire city because restaurants wouldn't want to go there. Nobody rich, nobody to spend money, right? You look, there's this little inlet I lived on. There was the river side, the intercoastal, and then there was the ocean side. And there's a handful of homes on the ocean side, there's a handful of homes on the river side. And then in the middle of this little inlet, right, arguably still a great place to live and retire, are all these little tiny homes. Like picture like maybe like a two-bedroom crib, right? Maybe they have 2 bathrooms. And most of these places, like you can tell these people were running out of cash. They were older. They were like 60, 70, 80. I'm sure some of them even all the way up to 90, maybe even cracking 100, right? And this is like a retirement area. Some of these people, like you just look at how they live. Like their cars look fucked up, beat up, broke down. Like most of them don't even leave their house. They think like,
oh, I retired in this place. Like now I get to live here and like go to the beach when I want.
But no, in the reality, they don't leave their fucking house. They just sit there in the house all day because they're too fucking old. They're too decrepit. They have too many health problems now. They didn't bet on that. They lived the regular life and they got to go do some things while they were like, you know, in their regular age. And then they ended up in a nice place, arguably. But again, they don't actually get to enjoy it, right? The whole point of you making a fuckload of cash is to condense the work life cycle down to a little tiny window so you maximize the fuck out of your earning potential in a short period of time so you get to live a life. You know, whenever I ask people in Jeremy's inner circle, I ask them all the time, like, when do you want to retire? Like, what age? You know, most of them say, the 20-year-olds always say like, oh, like 30 or like 35, you know? The 30-year-olds say 40, 45, right? When I was 25, I said 45. And I said, you know, I at least want to give myself the option to no longer work for active income at 45. You know, I'm 31 while I sit here and make this for you right now. And I'll tell you this, I don't have kids yet. Probably have kids in the next 2-3 years. That would imply that, let's say I have the kids at 35, right? From 35 to about 53. That'd be the lifespan of my kids from 0 to 18, okay? So in that window, right around the time they become like late kids and then early teenagers, that'd be where I'd ideally have my option to no longer have to work for active income, right? And think about this. This is really important you understand this. These goals that most of these people have, when you ask them as a follow-up question, how much do you have invested? The question is usually answered with,
Oh, I barely have anything invested, right?
now here's the cool part about what they have as potential though. They have a monumental earning potential where they can throw a fuckload of cash into the market in a period of time that's much shorter, right? They have to spend the time getting to that point where they have a lot of extra cash to throw at the market. But once they do throw it at the market, guess what? They'll have a fuckload more than what most people were able to accumulate over like 30 to 40 years, right? And it's not going to be a great retirement if they only gave it a short couple years or maybe a decade to compound. It needs more time to compound, and these people will likely work beyond the age in which they claim they do want to retire. But again, my point being, they at least have the potential, but if they go about running their businesses like most people, where they don't actually recognize that that's what they have to do, they end up being just like any other normal person, except they sacrifice all the stuff regular people get to go do that you don't get to do because you're so fucking busy, right? Like you won't get to go see the Great Wall of China if you aren't self-aware of that process and invest a fuckload of money over whatever period of time. Most of you haven't even done fucking investment math. You just live off the cash flow. And you got to the point where like you technically have more than enough to support you, but you're not supporting anybody else around you. And you're definitely not supporting your future self, and you just fucking stall. You gotta tap into something that in real time, when you are making excuses, when you're, and again, they won't sound like excuses to you. They'll sound like highly believable reasons that delay action. When you're making these reasons up that you choose to believe in, you have to have a superseding reason. You have to have something that overrides it and says, nope, you're just trying to slow down again. Nope, you're just trying to cozy up, okay? And that is a cool part about getting richer. You get to this point where, yeah, when you do choose to stop, usually your life's pretty fucking good. But it's not gonna stay good if your life isn't supported by a fuckload of money that you invested or got from an exit. And is your current business probable to get you to that point, right? Are you actually proactively doing anything that would reach a point where at whatever age you want it to be, you have whatever you need to sustain whatever you've got right now based on cash flow? That's the illusion. The cash flow is what keeps you comfortable. Yet as soon as you start cozying up and getting fucking lazy, the cash flow goes down. It teaches you the lesson I'm trying to tell you out loud right now every time it happens. You can't stop when you just have the cash flow to do what you want. You have to go in far excess of whatever that comfort level is so you can invest the excess, so the excess supports after it's invested you and gets you to the point where you have that amount of cash flow off the invested amount or off the exit that you could get. You gotta go bigger. Going bigger always solves your problem. It always solves these types of problems. These issues don't exist as you continue to go big. Because every time you go bigger and you get more cash and you're actually pocketing that cash, you condense time. You are just constantly condensing time cycles that take regular people fuckload longer durations, decades comparatively to what you can accomplish in years by making a fuckload more sooner. And that's why you sacrifice what you sacrifice. When you get cozy, when you get comfortable, when you get fucking lazy and you use these justifications to stall action, and listen, you'll be working. That's kind of the crazier part about these illusions, these justifications and reasons you'll come up with. Like you'll technically be doing work still, but you're not pushing yourself, and you know you're not pushing yourself. You can do a fuckload more than what you're doing right now. But boy, oh boy, you sure try to convince yourself you can't, huh? And you forget the whole fucking logic of this game. The whole logic is that you make these sacrifices so you can get a fuckload further in a much shorter duration of time than what it would take if you chose to be regular instead. You gotta step it up, okay? Enough playing fucking small ball. Enough of this tiny game shit that you're doing. Enough of these reasons and these fucking justifications for stalling action. If it comes down to the fact that you just don't know what to do to get to the next level, get to the point where you fucking figure it out. Invest into whoever you need to invest into. Read whatever you gotta read. Watch whatever you gotta watch. Talk to whoever you gotta talk to, okay? Get the fucking education out of the way so you can get back to action. And if you do know what you need to do, and you're just delaying the action because of some reasons or justifications that you're making up, it does not excuse the fact that life doesn't give a fuck, and you'll still put yourself at a disadvantage by making those excuses. You have to set aside those justifications and reasons. You're a smart person. That's why you got to this point. Okay? You're smart. You're not an idiot. But guess what an idiot would do in your circumstances? They wouldn't be smart enough to realize that they're smart enough to fool themselves, right? It's like that's the thing about being smart. You will have real reasons to delay action. A great example of this, I'm sure you can all relate to this. There are infinitely more stupid people, I mean like actual idiots, that have like 5 to 10 children, and you probably still have none, right? And if you do have kids, like you probably have very few kids. And to the few of those watching that have a fuckload of kids, like great for you, man. You're doing what most rich people don't do. Most rich people are smart and they say things like, well, now just isn't a great time to have kids. It'll lower my earning potential, or it'll do this, or it'll inhibit me from traveling, it'll inhibit, whatever the fuck the reasons are, right? It's like smart people tend to not have kids, or literally not have as many kids as what stupid people do compared. Stupid people outbreed smart people every day of the fucking week. There's an unfortunate movie, I don't remember the name of it, I didn't even watch the whole thing, I saw clips of it. And it was this movie where the earth eventually devolves to a point where it's a literal pack of fucking idiots that run the earth. Why? Because the idiots outbred the smart people. Literally, they made smart people irrelevant. They just didn't exist at a certain point in the future because smart people never stepped up and bred and had a fuckload of children, right? It's like, guys, you're smart enough to know, as an example, like I'm smart enough to know I have 3 little wiener dogs. I tell my fiance this shit all the time where I'm like, listen, I think these wiener dogs, they override what like our motherly and fatherly instincts. I feel like we should just have children instead of dogs, right? But because we have dogs, there's like some level of subconscious satisfaction as though we're parenting things because they're like children to a degree. I'll tell you that. I don't have kids and I'm not trying to be the dickhead that says dogs are exactly like kids, to be fair. But I'm telling you, like everybody I see with kids, they put a lot of fucking attention into their kids, and obviously kids are more hard work. But again, these dogs, they override this instinct, right? They override this feeling of what it would be like to just spend that same time and effort taking care of a kid, is my point. Yet, we don't just get rid of the dogs because we have a strong emotional connection to the dogs, right? And my point is, we also don't have kids because there's all kinds of justifications on why not to have kids. And we're smart enough to know that those things are technically true, but we're not smart enough to technically just override it anyway and just have some fucking kids. You understand? It's like, that's an example of what I'm telling you about. You likely have super believable reasons to delay action that are probably real, you know, that are honestly probably true. And you're likely not wrong with whatever you think about why you shouldn't do something, why you shouldn't take on that extra effort, why you shouldn't like spend the extra time. But you still gotta fucking do it. That's my point. You still gotta fucking do it. And guess what? Every single time you do it, you get to that other side and you say, oh, I should have done that way fucking sooner. And you realize with hindsight bias that it wasn't that hard, but you made it hard mentally. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Stop delaying the action, right? You get the funnel set up, you get the fucking messaging dialed in, you get the ads cranking, you run out of that audience and you got to do it all over again. Do it all over again. It's what it takes to make more fucking money, you know? When you get to the point where you recognize, I gotta go do some shit that I don't know that well, you gotta fucking do it anyway. When it comes to the point of saying, I gotta educate myself, I gotta get to the point where I invest time, effort, and attention and resources and development again, you gotta fucking do it. You understand? You gotta do it. Whatever it is that you're delaying, my whole point is just recognize, right? You are smart. You make up great reasons to delay action, but delaying action fucks you, and delaying action will fuck you in far grander ways. It'll make all of this that you are currently sacrificing for a much lower probability to get the outcome that the whole sacrifice is technically for, the major outcome. Remember, the sacrifice is for the major outcome. The sacrifice is for pulling that major outcome with a much higher probability into the near future rather than having it be something that we experience when we're like fucking 60, 70, 80 years old, right? It's like you're trying to experience it now. And that's the coolest part about cash flow. Like, you get to do cool shit now. You get to experience cool stuff now. You started the process where, like, as you pull that rope in, pulling that big future event in, you start to see little things accumulate, right? Like, you look in your watch box and you're like, damn. You know, you look in your garage and you're like, whoo. Yo, some of y'all, you got rich enough where you can't even have a garage. You got to get a little warehouse to put your cars in now, how rich you've gotten. You know what I mean? And it's like, you start to see the signs of life. You look at your bank balance and you're like, you know, you start to have to do things like get multiple bank accounts just to store $250K at a time because you have a bank that insures with FDIC insurance up to $250K. Maybe you got smart enough to use Mercury because they claim they can insure with their little strategic system of how they allocate your bank balance across multiple banks at the same time for you. So you get more money insured in comparison to one account with $250K with FDIC. But again, my point is like you see little signs, you know, your investment accounts, the gambles you take, the cash flow, your payment processor, the wires, like you see the signs of life, you know? You see it. And as you pull it in closer and closer and closer, the dumbest fucking thing to do is stop pulling it in because you started to see a little bit of results from the first half of the chain you're pulling in. That's the illusion. It's like the only reason you're seeing those things is because you've sacrificed what's necessary to sacrifice to get that shit in the first place coming in, right? The big outcome, you can never forget this. The big outcome that's so hard for most people to keep attention on is being able to sustain what you've managed to accumulate now, the cost of ownership, without having to work for the active cash flow anymore. That's what it's always been about. You just lose focus on that. And as a result of losing focus on that, you occasionally get comfortable because you managed to get yourself a great life, and you have this illusion that if you just stopped right now, that it'd all maintain itself. You'd lose all of it in the blink of an eye because you don't have enough to maintain the cost of ownership. That's what it all comes down to. And so what you have to do is you have to recognize, just as your life has gotten better from the cash flow you've generated now, it'll get way fucking better, and you increase that probability dramatically of being able to maintain the cost of ownership without having to work for the active income anymore if you keep going and you go bigger. You get to do it sooner, and you actually get to make these hyper unrealistic goals for most people on earth possible for yourself, and increase the probabilities of those things being possible for yourself if you just maintain that perspective as you go. You'll take the necessary actions, you'll make the necessary sacrifices, you'll do what you need to do consistently, and you won't ever believe these stupid fucking reasons you've come up with to stall the action. You'll just do the actions anyway. That's the whole point, okay? My name's Jeremy Haynes. If you're new to the channel, all we talk about around here is hitting $1 million months. Whether it's the first million or next million a month, it's the channel for you. To be clear, we don't make any income claims. We don't have any earning potential. We don't know who the fuck you are. And most people on earth are pretty fucking dumb. They don't have any chances of turning money into more money, let alone, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, getting to 10 million a year, which isn't even $1 million a month. They claim 0.1% of people can do that, okay? There's an even smaller probability to hit $1 million a month, let alone the even smaller quantity of people on earth that are probable to hit anything bigger than that. It's a completely different set of characteristics. It's a completely different type of person, and you gotta maintain being that type of person and evolve into that type of person more and more and more as time goes on. No point in making the sacrifice if you don't continue making the sacrifice. Go out there and get richer. Talk soon.